Let's continue to work within the admin section of our website so that we can really customize and add some unique polish to the way in which this interface appears. We will go ahead and add our own custom logo to the top portion of the admin bar, as well as to give this area a little bit more breathing room and alter the greeting message. In addition, we will be customizing the footer portion of the admin page. What we'll be doing to start off with is we're going to replace this WordPress logo with our own custom logo. When you click on this logo, it currently takes you to more information about WordPress. We're going to get rid of this link, and we will ensure that this will link to the front end portion of our website. I'm going to return to the dashboard for now, and we'll start off by working on this part. We'll begin by adding some code to our functions file. Let's start off by getting rid of the WordPress logo. The first thing we've done here is we've created a new function called remove WP logo admin bar. This function is taking one parameter, WP admin bar, which is the WordPress admin toolbar object. This ensures that this function will modify only the admin toolbar. This next line of code is where we call the remove node method on the WP admin bar. This will remove the WordPress logo, which normally appears in that top left corner of the admin toolbar. WP logo is the ID of the WordPress logo in the admin bar. Here we're closing the function, and then we're using an add action hook so that we can hook the function into the admin bar menu. This is the action that will allow us to modify the admin toolbar. We're going to call our function remove WP logo admin bar. We've set this up so that it is a callback function that is being executed, and the 999 is the priority. A higher number means this function runs later, ensuring that it will run after the default toolbar items are added. This prevents conflicts where the WordPress logo might still appear if another function is going to modify the toolbar. So basically what this function does is it allows us to remove the WordPress logo from the admin toolbar. We're going to use remove node to modify the admin bar structure, and we're ensuring that this runs late in the admin bar menu action to ensure compatibility. If we save this now and go back to the front end portion of the website and refresh the page, you'll notice that the logo is now gone. The next step is to add in our own custom logo. Let's break down what this code does. Once again, I'm creating a custom function. This time we're calling it add custom admin bar logo. This takes one parameter, WP admin bar, which represents the WordPress admin toolbar object. And this function is going to allow us to modify the admin bar by adding our new custom logo. The next line of code is where we set up an array. We will create an associative array called args to store properties for our new admin bar node. The first key is ID, and this is where we'll assign the node a unique ID of custom logo. This ID is used to reference the logo in WordPress. The next key, title, is going to define what appears in the admin bar. We will be inserting an image so that we can display our SVG logo. In order to get the appropriate URL, we're using the Get Style Sheet Directory URI, which is going to retrieve the URL of our child theme directory, ensuring the correct path to the logo file that is currently being housed in our images folder of our child theme. We're also using some inline styles here where we're setting the height, the width, and some margin specifications. The next key is href, and this will allow us to make the logo a clickable link. Home URL dynamically will retrieve the homepage URL of the website. You can go ahead and use this if you want this link to go to the homepage of your website, or you can change it to an alternate URL if you want this link to go elsewhere. The meta key is going to store additional properties for the node. In this case, we are setting up a nested array, which is going to set the hover tooltip to display our site's name. So in this case, it will be mar. This line of code right here is going to use the WP admin bar add node to add the new logo with the defined properties. And finally, we're using the add action hook so that we can hook the add custom admin bar logo function into the admin bar menu action. We're using a priority of 1 to ensure it runs early so that it appears before other menu items. So in summary, this function is replacing the default WordPress logo in the admin bar. We're going to add a custom logo from the child themes images folder. We're going to make the logo clickable and it's going to link to the homepage. And we're going to include some hover text showing the site's name. Let's save this and take a look. If I refresh my browser, you can see that now we see our logo. This is a link, and if I click it, it takes me to the front end portion of my website. And if I hover over this, we're going to get the tooltip of mar. So everything is now functioning in the way that we expected it to. The next thing that we're going to augment is we're going to change this howdy text to be our own custom greeting. We'll do this by continuing to work within the functions file. Let's break down this block of code. The first thing we're doing is we're declaring a function called change howdy text. This function is going to take 3 parameters. The first one, translated text, is going to be the final translated string that WordPress will output. The text parameter is going to store the original text before translation. And domain is the text domain used for localization. Here we're using a conditional statement where we're checking to see if the current text is set to howdy and %s represents the username. So in this case, it's going to say howdy Emily, and if another person was logged in, it would say howdy and then whatever their username is. Keep in mind that %s is going to be replaced with the username. The return statement right here is what's going to happen if this condition is true. So if the text string is set to howdy user, we're going to return or alter this to now say happy site editing user. We have another return statement outside of our conditional statement, and this is the fallback. So if the original text is not set to howdy user, then this return will ensure that the text is unchanged. Finally, we're going to apply this. We will hook the function into the getText by using a filter. The getText filter will modify translatable strings before WordPress displays them. We're going to use a priority of 10, which is the default priority, and that determines when the function will run. And then the third argument, the number 3, is specifying that this function, change howdy text, expects 3 parameters: the translated text, the original text, and the domain. So basically what's happening here is we're modifying the howdy greeting in the admin bar. We're replacing this text with our own custom message. In this case, it's going to say happy site editing. And we're using the getText filter to dynamically change translatable text. Let's save this and take a look in our browser. Keep your eye on this portion of the window. When I click refresh, you can see that howdy has been replaced with happy site editing. The final thing that we're going to do is we're going to augment the footer portion of our admin bar. Now, it is worth mentioning that most WordPress websites will have a link to WordPress down here at the bottom. Let me just show you what that looks like. Here is another WordPress website that we've worked on, and you can see down at the bottom of the admin page, it says, "Thank you for creating with WordPress." This is a link to wordpress.org. And then over on the right, it is going to monitor the version that we're using. If I click this link, it will allow me to update WordPress. For whatever reason, the MAR website does not have this information, but the code that I'm going to share with you will allow us to not only replace that information, but also remove the information if it currently exists within your website. So let's go ahead and modify this footer section so that we can customize this with some of our own branding. I'll go ahead and add the code into my functions file, and then let me break this down and explain what's going on. We are starting off with a function called remove footer admin. This is just declaring our new function, and this function is going to modify the footer text within the WordPress admin dashboard. The next line of code is where we're setting up a variable called image URL. We are going to ensure that we retrieve the URL of the child themes directory. We're going to append that with an image that is located inside the image folder of my child theme. For this example, I'm just going to use this favicon image that I'm using elsewhere in my website. So in this case, the output is going to be the URL of our MAR website, and then it'll append the end with /images/favicon.png. Next, we're setting up what we want to display as our custom footer HTML. We're using an echo statement to output the custom HTML. What we're going to start off by doing is creating a clickable link that is going to open our mar.com website in a new tab. We're also going to be adding a class of admin footer so that if we need to style this, we'll have an easy way to grab this particular item. In addition to the class, I also have some custom inline styles. I'm setting the color of the link to be the same blue color that we're using, and I'm removing the underline from the link. Inside the link, I'm using an image. This particular image element is using the escape URL, image URL, which is allowing us to display the favicon image. This will ensure that the path to the image is going to be coded correctly. We're adding an alt attribute so that just in case there's something wrong with the image, this will work from a usability standpoint. I'm using some inline styles to set the height and the vertical alignment to middle. Then we have a span element that is wrapping around the text, Marine Adventure Retreats. And the reason I have this here is in case I want to be able to style this differently from the rest of the text. Then I'm closing my anchor element. And then we have some text that says designed by. I am placing a link here so that I can make a custom link, and I'm going to put my name. So obviously you could populate this with any link, and you could add the designer who worked on the website. In order to apply the custom footer, we're going to hook into the function of admin footer text. We're using a filter to do that, and we will be overriding the default WordPress footer text with our custom message. So essentially, this block of code is going to replace the WordPress admin footer message. It will display a custom logo and branding text. It's going to include a clickable link to Marine Adventure Retreats, and it will credit the designer with a link to their site. So let's save this. And if we go back to the front end portion of WordPress and refresh, you can see that here is my custom footer. We have an element from our logo. We have a clickable link that will take us to the front end portion of the website. And then I have the designed by and a credit to me. And this is going to be a link to my website. Now, the one thing that I do want to point out that I'll want to fix with some CSS is the fact that the baseline of this text is not lining up with the version text, which is over here on the right. So I will be using a little bit of CSS to ensure that these elements are going to align correctly. In order to figure out what's controlling these elements, let's open up our inspector. If I go ahead and select this area down here, you can see that we have a div called WP footer that contains the paragraph that we just generated, along with a second paragraph that has the upgrade version number for WordPress. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell this WP footer element to use a display of flex. And then I can add an align items center. And in order to push the version number over to the right, I'm going to select our footer left element that we just created. And I'm going to use a margin right of auto. And it looks like this class is also controlling the version number, but this has a class of align right. So we'll have to use our ID of WP footer P, and then we can use the ID of footer left or the class of align left. Let's jump into our CSS. And I'm going to place this code inside my admin color scheme. I'm just going to keep all of my admin styles inside this CSS file. I'm going to add these two styles in. So once again, on WP footer, I'm using a display of flex. I'm going to align items, and I will use a selector of P, and I'll just be very specific and use footer-left and align left, and I'll use the margin right auto. If we save this and return back to the browser and refresh, you can see that now this is aligned, and this portion of the footer is on the left and this portion is on the right. So I love that we can really get in and customize these things. I think it really helps to solidify your brand when you add these little nuances. The final thing that we're going to do within this exercise is I'm just going to give this WP admin bar a little bit of padding. I want this to just take up a tiny bit more room. I think it'll look a little bit better. So let's go ahead and add some CSS. And when we do this, you will see that if I add some padding, let's just say of 5 pixels, it does give everything inside of this WP admin bar a little bit more breathing room, which I like. But it starts to obscure these two elements. And these elements allow you to access different portions of WordPress, so they are important. We don't want to cover these up in any way. So in addition to adding this padding of 5 pixels to my WP admin bar, I'm going to need to push these elements down a little bit. And here is the button for help. And you can see it has an ID and a number of classes. And all we need to do really is add a margin top of 10 pixels. Remember, I have to use 10 because I'm adding padding on the top and the bottom to the WP admin bar. Essentially, I'm adding 10 pixels. So that looks much better. However, when we click these, you'll notice that the tabs for both of these elements gets pushed a little bit farther away than how we want these things to appear. So let me show you in my CSS how I'm able to resolve this issue. I'm going to go ahead and add this code underneath the admin bar comment that I already have. So we will add our padding of 5 pixels. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a link to screen meta links. .show settings. This will set the margin top to 10 pixels. So this is going to make the elements look like this. We still have this issue that these elements are kind of disconnecting a little bit when this is open. So if we look around in here, we are going to want to find the element that has a class of screen meta. That's this element right here. And if we add some margin here, you can see we already have some margin. The margin on the top is set to 0. If we just update this to 10 pixels, and then we're going to use 20 pixels for the right, and we're going to set this to negative 10 pixels. And you can see that that just snugs that right back up, and that will work on both of these buttons. So I am just going to add this redefined margin setting to the screen meta element. And if we save now and go back into the browser, everything should be working in the way that we want. This is looking great. And this takes care of customizing our colors inside of the sidebar, adding our custom logo to the upper portion, adding a custom message, and we have given a little bit more space to this top admin menu bar. In addition, we have created a custom footer down here. I hope that you're enjoying being able to customize the admin section. We have one more thing that we're going to do, and I will show you what this looks like in our next lesson.